Imagine this. You're walking through the bustling streets of ancient Rome in the year 67 AD. The sun's warm glow reflects off white marble buildings, and the scent of spiced wine and roasted meats floats through the air, something that lingers in your chest like a stone after you hear it. If you're someone who finds truth in forgotten corners of history, who feels the pull of the past calling softly through time, consider subscribing, or at least letting me know where you're listening from. It amazes me how stories like this can bring us all together, different cities, different worlds, but the same need to understand. This is the story of how love warped into obsession, grief into madness, and a human life into a puppet carved for a madman's fantasy. There, you see him, the Emperor Nero, in all his regal splendor, striding through the forum. It isolates. It breeds paranoia. It convinces you you're untouchable. By 65 AD, Nero wasn't just corrupted. He was unraveling. But your eyes are drawn to the figure by his side. To understand the horror, we need to understand the man who started it all. Nero wasn't always a monster. When he first became emperor at just 16, he actually showed promise. Maybe it was being the only person in the entire empire who no one dared to correct. Or maybe it was the loss of the one person he truly loved. He cut taxes, gave people entertainment, and even performed in plays. Imagine that, the ruler of an empire, strumming a lyre on stage. For a while, Rome thought maybe, just maybe, a golden age was beginning. Draped in silks and adorned in dazzling jewels, she seems almost otherworldly. Beautiful, poised, regal. But there's a chill in the air that has nothing to do with the breeze, because everyone knows the horrifying secret. That woman was once a boy named Sporus. What Nero did to him isn't just one of those bizarre stories of Roman excess. It's something far darker. Before we dive into the shadows of this tale, now, back to the story. But power does strange things. Maybe it was the fear that everyone around him wanted him dead. Her name was Poppaea Sabina. To Nero, she was everything. Obsession. She saw the danger in Nero's passion, but she used it. She built a network of allies, but she made one fatal mistake. She wasn't afraid of him. Nero didn't just want Poppaea. He wanted to own her. He smothered her with gifts that nearly emptied the empire's coffers. Jewels from India, silks from China, perfumes from Arabia. He isolated her, watched her constantly, commissioned portraits and statues so he could see her even when she wasn't around. It wasn't love. It was possession. Stunning, clever, ambitious. Not just a pretty face, she knew how to navigate the treacherous waters of Roman politics. When Nero met her, he was stuck in a cold marriage with Octavia, the daughter of the previous emperor. Octavia was quiet, dutiful, proper. The stories vary. Maybe she criticized his music. Maybe she questioned his loyalty as a husband. Maybe she just looked at him the wrong way. What we do know is that she was pregnant, and during a heated argument, Nero struck her hard. Some say it was one blow. Others say it was a brutal attack. Either way, the result was the same. Poppaea died from her injuries. So did their unborn child. Poppaea was fire, charisma, power, and Nero was helplessly drawn to that fire. Their affair began like many in Rome scandalous, whispered about. But it quickly spiraled into something else. Was now kneeling beside the broken body of the woman he claimed to love more than life. He screamed at her to live, begged for forgiveness, ordered the best doctors in Rome to save her. But it was too late. Poppaea, though, wasn't naive. She argued with him, challenged him, even laughed at him. One day in 65 AD, something snapped, and Nero shattered. The man who ruled 60 million people, who had artists and armies at his command. He embalmed her body instead of cremating it, built her a tomb that rivaled those of the gods, and even declared her divine. He spoke to her corpse. He kept her presence alive in the palace, maybe 14 or 15. A former slave, born into the imperial household, raised in the palace, educated, polite, intelligent. But none of that mattered to Nero. What mattered was that Sporus looked like Poppaea. The eyes, the cheekbones, that ghost of a resemblance was enough, forcing his court to act like she was still breathing. Her seat stayed empty at banquets, her name whispered in the present tense. And then, he saw Sporus. Sporus was young. Something twisted deep inside Nero sparked to life. Here, in front of him, was a second chance. Of course, Sporus was a boy. But for a man who believed he could do anything, who thought himself divine, that was just a detail. One he intended to erase. Nero ordered the court physicians to perform surgery on Sporus. The goal wasn't healing. It was transformation. Feminization. What they did to him was irreversible. painful, possibly deadly, but Sporus survived. He had a palace, a staff, income, even a litter to carry him through the streets. But luxury couldn't hide the truth. He was a prisoner in another person's skin. Every word he spoke, every move he made, had to align with Nero's delusion. He had to pretend to share memories he never lived, react to stories he was a part of. He had to be Poppea, down to the smallest detail. When he emerged, Nero renamed him Sabina, after Poppea. And then came the wedding. Not just some quiet union in secret. No, Nero threw an imperial wedding, the most lavish affair Rome had ever seen. Sporus, now Sabina, was dressed in gowns designed to flatter his reshaped body. He wore Poppy's jewels, every smile you were forced to give as someone else. Her makeup, her hair. He was taught how to walk, how to speak, how to be her. Could you imagine the weight of that? Every mirror reminding you of someone you never were. Every lesson stripping away your identity. Sporus didn't just play a role. He became it. Because he had no choice. After the wedding, Sporus lived as the Empress of Rome. Over time, Sporus became really good at it. Historians say he learned to read Nero's moods like a book. He always said the right thing, always smiled at the right time. But they also say he became quieter. In 68 AD, the empire began to turn against him. Generals rebelled. The Senate declared him an enemy. The Praetorian Guard abandoned him. Sadder, a shadow of the boy he once was. When Nero decided to tour Greece, Sporus went with him, dressed as the Empress, treated as royalty, shown off to foreign leaders who must have been baffled by what they were seeing. Instead, he was passed from one powerful man to another, treated like a prize, or worse, a novelty. But Nero's madness couldn't last forever. A death of dignity. He fled with a small group of loyalists, among them Sporus. When Nero finally chose death over capture, Sporus was there, still playing his role, still wearing the mask. It's the way Sporus was erased piece by piece, until nothing was left but a character he never asked to play. The way love, in the hands of the powerful, became a weapon, how beauty became a curse, and how the human spirit, even crushed under layers of silk and lies, found one final moment of truth. After Nero's death, Sporus didn't find peace. One of the new emperors, Vitellius, decided to force Sporus into performing in the arena in a sick public reenactment of mythological rape. A final humiliation. A boy, someone who might have had dreams and hopes and a whole life ahead of him. But Sporus wouldn't let them have that. Rather than endure one more performance, he ended his own life, likely by poison. He was barely 20, and just like that, he was free. What makes this story linger isn't just the cruelty. Sporus is remembered in footnotes, a symbol of Roman decadence. But he was more than that. He was a person, and maybe by telling his story, we give him back some of the humanity that history took away.